A whirlwind of different subjects.
We go back to urban ecology now with Bradley and some very nice looking butterflies.
Okay, thank you. So, as you probably already know if you've met me, I'm studying urban woodland butterflies in Milton Keynes. So the first fundamental question about this, I think, is to ask why would you even care about butterflies? And they're nice and colourful, but what function do they do? You're about to find out, don't worry. So within our ecosystem, there are a fantastic bioindicator species. So what they can do is they can indicate the general health of a local habitat patch or on a national scale, biodiversity in general. So if you see lots of butterflies at an area that you're in, doing very well, the area is doing well. If your butterflies are declining, then perhaps your ecosystem is declining and requires some management. There is also a very long history of collecting data on butterflies in the UK. So legendary lepidopterist F.W. Froebel wrote in his book in 1904 about how rich the abundance and species were of the small pearl-border fritillary, which is now one of our most threatened butterflies in Britain. So this gives us an idea of, with such long historical records, we can understand how butterflies respond to change and therefore how ecosystems respond to change and respond with biodiversity. Urbanization itself then is generally considered to be bad for biodiversity. We often think that if we build a city or a town or whatever, then we're flattening out all the life and destroying everything, and that is true in many cases. However, in the study area of Milton Keynes, under the correct management and the right priorities, you can see that there are a wealth of beautiful areas just here on our doorstep. So to really hit that point home, every picture you've seen already and every picture for the whole rest of the presentation has been taken by me in Milton Keynes somewhere in the past year or two. Here we have an ancient woodland. This is how far upwards. This site's nearly 1,000 years old. And the top right is this incredible flowering meadows in Tattenhoe. And the bottom right is one of my favourite places in Milton Keynes, which is now locked. So that picture of me in there is an exclusive one of an ancient meadow. It is my foot. Yeah. Which is at the end, please. In the middle here is a bumblebee orchid. So this isn't a rare species nationally or even really globally. And if you see those little coloured flags around campus, I think that's what they are. But the point of me taking this picture is that this was just randomly on a little patch, just a scrubby, like messy patch when I was walking to the university a few months ago last year. So it really just showed the right habitat, biodiversity can thrive. And this is also really well demonstrated by some, we're laying an internet cable or something outside my house and disturbing everything, but still we had an orange tip butterfly lay an egg, grow and survive, even in those hostile environments. I'm interested in woodland butterflies specifically then, because as the stat states, 75% of British butterflies use the woodland in some way. So if we're saying butterflies are good for biodiversity and woodlands are one of the hotbeds for them, then we need to look after the woodlands for butterflies and then therefore to manage the biodiversity. So to do this, I've looked at the habitat suitability for butterflies for 10 different woodlands in Milton Keynes. So 5 of them are ancient woodlands, the ones that are just about 1,000 years old. 2 of them are what I've called amenity woodlands. These are just parks. And the remainder are roadside vegetation. So these are the trees and shrubs and stuff that you see when you're driving along the grid roads in Milton Keynes. These sites were divided into 24 transects that were 500 meters long. And along those, I collected butterfly data about the species and the amount of species that I saw, as well as the structural diversity of the canopy and how shady areas were and such when they were found. We recorded over 1,000 butterfly sightings, so there was a lot of butterflies here in just these 10 woods alone in that short period of 8 weeks. The rest of the presentation, green colour will always represent a reference to an ancient woodland. The salmony pink one is going to be amenity, and the blue one will be roadside. So when I got my data set and I finished, I did all that work, I sat down and tried to find out what correlates with butterfly diversity. My data was telling me nothing. It was a frustrating and incredibly annoying moment that anybody that has learned with me will know that I'm stressing out like crazy for ages. So the first or most obvious thing I would think is that it's a typical principle in landscape ecology that the bigger area you have, the more butterflies you have. So you can see there's kind of a trend going on here And Kingsmead Spinney knocks that out, and we'll come back to Kingsmead. I'm not going to say I don't know what's going on there because that sounds unprofessional, so I will say it's under investigation. The interesting thing is that even though there's a clear trend there, we have two of these amenity sites here, the red dots. And the red dots show that they have the same amount of diversity, even though one site is twice the size of the other one. So this simple correlation between size and species diversity is not necessarily true. So what is going on? I was given this tree height map very kindly by Joe Fennell, and when I was looking at it, you can see some differences between the woodland patches. So let's focus on the tree height. So the red coloration is tall trees, and the darker colours are the short trees. So if we look at this site, which I've called an amenity site, it's got generally short trees in it, and there aren't really loads of butterflies there. The same can be said for this roadside area. There's not many butterflies there, and the trees are quite short. If we look at this ancient woodland, there are lots of butterflies there, and there's lots of red and yellow there, so the trees are taller. So maybe this is about the height of the trees, which may be for some kind of metric of diversity. So finally, I sit down. I've got an idea. It's rooted in science. I've convinced you quite well. You're all smiling because you know where this is going. Not significant. This is driving you crazy. It all made sense, and it just didn't work. But this is where I learned the value of data visualization. So if I plot that, there's really quite an obvious trend. And we have Kingsmead, which is still under investigation, to try and explain what is actually going on there. So the canopy height, if we remove those outliers, the canopy height then does correlate, finally, with the Simpson's diversity index. So the more you see more butterflies at sites with taller trees. So what does that tell us? Does it say that if we plant some trees and let them grow for 50 years and do nothing, they're really tall, will we get more butterflies? No, because of course it's not that simple. Instead, what I did is I looked at the standard deviation of the height of the trees. So what that means is a low standard deviation, like in the image on the left, is a site that has tree canopy heights that are pretty much the same all along. A higher standard deviation has a variety of tree canopy structure. And I think what this means is if you have lots of tall trees and short trees in areas with no trees, you have lots of different light environments and lots of different potential habitats for lots of different species of butterflies. And if we remember, they're a bioindicator by extension of other species as well. So does this correlate this time? Well, we have a site here with a low standard deviation. Again, if rather than looking for the red, we can look at the difference in colour. So there's not much colour difference there, so probably low standard deviation. And then we have a high standard deviation at the site that we know has lots of butterflies. So fingers crossed, does this correlate? And finally, it does. Don't ask me about that one on the left there. But apart from that, even with that included, and this time I don't have to drop out Kingsmead or Linford Wood, there's still a trend that's highly statistically significant, which is a relief to say the least. So in summary, the best habitat structure or complexity for butterflies in Milton Keynes woodlands are sites with a mixture of tall and medium trees, sites with a mixture of short trees and shrubs. And this is a brimstone butterfly that laid an egg on this right in front of me last year. It was amazing. And grassy glades and edges. So I'm sure we're all aware that pollinators require lots of flowers, but butterflies often require specific food plants, and a lot of them rely on grasses. So a mixture of different species is the point I'm trying to hit home here, and hopefully what my data is actually saying. Here's a picture of me quite literally hugging a tree. I'm happy to take any questions you might have. Thank you for listening.
Plenty of time for questions. So David, go first.
I'm sure you have, but if you look at how the